Hello, and welcome to our virtual conversation on the 2020 census. I'm Chuck Bean, Executive Director of the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, and I will be your host tonight. With me here in the studio, we have Prince George's County Council Member and COG Board Chair, Derek Leon Davis, and Arlington County Board Member and COG Board Vice Chair, Christian Dorsey. We are also joined by Fernando Armstrong, Director of the U.S. Census Bureau's Philadelphia Regional Office, which covers the District of Columbia and 8 states, including Maryland and Virginia. Saif Rahman with the Dar al-Hijra Islamic Center, a mosque in Fairfax County, and Walter John with the Latino Economic Development Center in D.C. Tonight, we are going to discuss the upcoming 2020 census. Our goal is to answer questions about what the census is, how to take it, and why it is important to our communities. For those of you joining online tonight, we encourage you to offer questions for folks here in the studio by using the Facebook chat box or texting the following number, 571-356-9267. Again, texting at 571-356-9267. When submitting your questions, please feel free to introduce yourself and let us know your neighborhood or organization that you're involved with. So let's get started with the basics. Fernando, can you provide a brief overview of what the 2020 census is?
Sure. The census is the opportunity that only comes once every 10 years. It's in the Constitution that every 10 years we take a census so that our representative government can continue to function. The people that go to represent us in Congress are determined by the census. Also, every year, over $675 billion come back to the community in terms of roads, hospitals, schools, based on census figures.
So when exactly is the 2020 census happening, and how will our residents know to respond?
So the Census Day, historically known Census Day, is April 1st of 2020. And that is the day when we take the snapshot of the country. However, starting next Thursday, March 12th, we'll be sending the letter of invitation for the public to go online and do the census, or go on the phone, or wait for the questionnaire to come up. So very, very soon, next week, everyone will have the opportunity to do the census.
March 12th and after, we should be looking for the letters.
Absolutely.
Inviting us to participate.
Very exciting.
So Christian and Derek, as elected officials representing communities in Virginia and Maryland, why do you believe the census is important to your constituents? Let's turn to Derek first.
Well, you know, Chuck, the first thing in our constituency is the budget. And when you look at it from the perspective of the federal budget and $675 billion in funding annually that comes out of the census to fund things, as Fernando said, seats in Congress are apportioned by the census count. Also special education, pre-K education such as Head Start, Medicaid programs, $675 billion is determined this way. In the state of Maryland, one of the things that happens is when you have people who are not counted, you end up with significant loss of resources that would have come from the federal government. It's estimated that we lost nearly $1 billion in the state of Maryland over the last 10 years because of a significant undercount of about 53,000 residents. And then locally in Prince George's County, Maryland, where I'm from, we had an undercount of about 20,000 residents that we believe are there and were there, losing a significant amount of money, $363 million that could have been part of our budget over the last 10 years. So it's important for our citizens to know that they must count, must be counted, not be afraid to be counted, so that these resources come from the Fed to the state and to our locals.
Thank you for that perspective from Maryland, Prince George's County. Let's go across the river and Christian Dorsey in Arlington.
Well, our perspective is not entirely different, but you know, when Derek and I, when we think about our jobs, a big part of what we do, we make decisions. And you can only make decisions as good as the data that informs those decisions in the first place. And when it comes to the census, it's the gold standard of data. Nothing is better. So it's important to make sure that we have our fair share of funding for everything that you can imagine, school lunches to affordable housing. But it's also incredibly important when we think about the investments that we make in our community, where we're going to build schools, where we're going to provide transit, what services we're going to provide for our seniors. That has to be based on what our community actually looks like and what it needs. And the census is the gold standard. And it also is really helpful to help the private sector make good decisions, because if a business wants to know where the talent pool is or what the customer base is going to look like, they're not going to find anything better than the census as well. So this is something that only happens every 10 years because it's a comprehensive set of data which really fuels the country.
Christian, thank you for your leadership on this. In addition to elected officials, community leaders are very important. So, Walter, can you tell us a little bit about your work on the census with the Latino Economic Development Corporation?
Yes, definitely. So as a nonprofit organization and working directly with the community, we are doing everything that we can do to inform and educate the communities that we work with. Because our name is the Latino Economic Development Center, but we work with all the communities in DC, in Montgomery County, Prince George County, Arlington, Virginia. So we are including that information in our workshops. We are also having technology available in our office for them to come and complete the survey with us. We are going to be doing canvassing the area, passing by flyers. We have in our office a good number of boxes with flyers in English and Spanish at this moment. And so we are doing every effort that we can do to touch the community. We are also doing a radio show in Spanish every Wednesday at one of the radios in Maryland. So we are talking about the census every week, and in our classes, and individual counseling and workshops.
Good. Walter, we appreciate all the work that you're doing. Now let's turn to SAFE and your leadership in the faith community. Can you tell us a little bit about outreach through the faith community?
Sure. So we actually happen to be in one of the lowest counted census tracts in the last census, and we realized how important it was to get involved and make sure that the faith communities were involved in the count. So one of the things that we've been working on is partnering with the Fairfax County Complete Count Committee to make sure that we're inviting the faith communities to our center, as well as distributing talking points about how important it is to get counted and what impact it has on the different communities. So for example, we've held a lunch at the mosque for all of the partners that were interfaith partners. We're also actually distributing talking points to the mosques across Fairfax County to make sure that Friday sermons include information on the census so that people realize, because the community trusts faith leaders, and faith leaders can deliver the message to communities essentially either whether it's on Fridays for Muslims, on Saturdays for the Jewish community, or Sundays for the Christian community, but faith leaders can deliver a message that's trusted by the community, and that's the role that we're trying to play to make sure that the faith communities are aware.
Thank you. You mentioned a complete count committee in Fairfax County. Are other jurisdictions organized that way, that a complete count committee consists of government, civic, nonprofit leaders?
So yeah, I mean, I know Fairfax County has done a great job. Katie Strotman with the Fairfax County staff has organized a great group of people. We get together regularly to talk about what the different groups are doing and kind of see where we need to focus. But I'm sure other counties are doing the same.
Yeah, we're adorned with materials from Arlington and also the District of Columbia, and jurisdictions all throughout the COG region are joined together under COG's leadership. Thank you, Chuck, in making sure the complete count committees were not only formed but sharing best practices. Some of the innovative stuff that's happening throughout the region, really great, not just pins and building partnerships, but I remember magnets on cars as county vehicles drive through their particular communities. This is an all-out regional effort. It's great to see.
Prince George's too?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I joked with Fernando earlier. We tried hard to be the first in the state of Maryland to bring in the census so that we could start our complete count committee. And the county council, the year I was chair, we reached out. Fernando came in. He just informed me that we were second best. Allegheny County beat us by just a few days.
But it's important to recognize that the support we get from the complete count committees and the local executives and all the local officials, that is what's going to make the difference.
Yeah.
I think your voices are far more powerful than anything we can do.
So I'm wondering, Waldo, if you ever get this question, but let me first pose it to Fernando. How is my information going to be used in the performance of the census? And then maybe you can comment on that in your outreach. So Fernando, how's the information going to be used?
The first thing is that the data we collect from everyone by law is strictly confidential. There is the Title 13 of the U.S. Code protects the information. We don't share it with other federal agencies or state agencies. It's strictly confidential. There are very, very high penalties if anyone were to violate that. So that's in terms of the protection. The census in 2020 will be done using technology. So there's no paper to be lost. There is nothing to be misplaced. Technology brings to us some advantages, and to the public, advantages that we were not able to do before. People can go online. No one needs to go to their door. They can go on the phone. So there are many advantages in 2020 that we want the public to take good use of.
Thank you, Fernando. So the information is safe.
Absolutely.
And I think a question to Safe and Walda, what do you say to people who are afraid to be counted?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and that's a challenge that all of us need to overcome and to make a really effort to educate the community. And as Fernando explained, let them know that it's secure for them and it's important for them to complete the census. If they want a better quality of life for the whole family, better services, better schools, to keep that lunch at the school for their children, they really need to overcome that fear, and especially among the Latino community and the undocumented community, that's a real thing. It's a big fear for them. But that is our work with the partnerships among the Latino, all the nonprofit organizations and the nonprofit sector, schools, health clinics, to educate the community and let them know that this is safe. And yes, we received that question, and we can see that they are scared to do it. But it's going to be really important that all the sectors, decision makers, government, and the nonprofit sector, the schools, we work together if we really want to make a difference this time.
So you're collaborating with other Latino-focused nonprofit organizations and others. Who are some of the key partners for you?
Yes, and not just Latino nonprofit organizations, all the organizations across the region, we are collaborating, and I can talk especially in the District of Columbia. We are working very close with the Office of the Front Mayor, Mayor Bowser, Office of Latino Affairs, Office of Asian Affairs, African Affairs. So all of us are collaborating and have different committees, and we are in constant communication, meeting every other week or every week. And beginning next weekend, we are going to start doing community events, so they can talk to us, we can answer questions, and have that direct contact with them.
And Saif, how about you?
So, I mean, the similar fears, similar concerns. It's a little bit different for the Muslim community in particular. What we're telling the community members is answer the forms online so you don't get that knock on the door that you may be concerned is, the federal government knocking on your door. But that's the message that we're getting out and getting across, and I think that as faith leaders, one of the concerns that we were expressing is we're putting our necks out there in order to make sure that this happens, and we want the support of our elected leaders to make sure that the data is secure, to make sure that the data isn't misused. And actually, the census has done quite a good job. The census folks have been at the Complete Count Committee meetings. I want to particularly thank and lift up Chairman Jeff McKay. He's done a great job in Fairfax County assuring communities. And what we're trying to do is to tell people, answer the forms so you don't get that knock on the door that you're concerned, who is this knocking on my door? So that we get the counts of people. But yes, there's a concern, and I think that people in the community need to work together to make sure that those concerns are allayed.
So Fernando, again, you're saying the forms are getting mailed out, and we'll get them between March 12th, March 20th. We're hearing Safe, and I think Walda's saying, answer the forms, the invitation, and go online to answer the census.
Correct. There will be 5 mailings. Initially an invitation followed by a number of reminders. On the fourth mailing, if people have not gone online or have not gone on the phone, then a paper form will be sent to them. Hopefully by then everyone has gone online, everyone has done it, but that will be followed then by mid-May. People that have not taken advantage of any of those tools, then we're going to visit them. And hopefully the number of visits will be very few, because everyone will have taken advantage of going online.
Fernando, is it fair to say that those of us who really understand the importance of the census, we should take that invitation in mid-March and complete it so that the resources for the harder to reach populations can be conserved for that effort? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. We have, through the many complete count committees and many partners that have been working with us, the awareness that exists now and the motivation is very encouraging to us. We think that immediately people are going to be taking advantage of the opportunities and they're going to be participating.
Great. Derek, Christian, there's any number of things that are on your minds of your constituents. How are you encouraging your constituents to participate?
Well, you know, Chuck, our complete count committee has been set up and really active in touching our faith-based communities, and one of the things that we really talked about was the hard-to-count communities, and we tried to find a way to put in infrastructure that would ensure that at minimum we got down this level of information to our hard-to-count communities, specifically our Latino populations in Prince George's County. Our faith-based institutions are strong and viable and vivacious in Prince George's County. We've worked hand in glove with them to make sure that we are getting this information out. I believe that it's just the energy. The energy around something so important sometimes is because this is one of those processes that seems to be governmental and it stays at a high level. Sometimes the energy didn't exist. I've never seen the energy around the census as strong as it is now in 2020. And just anecdotally, I laugh because I worked for the Census Bureau in the early 90s, the late 80s, and I actually was involved in the census count. I worked in the shipping department, and Fernando, I'd be glad now that we have such devices and electronics because those days, all of those tapes that came from the field, you know, that was a cumbersome task. So we're graduating to a new way, and there's no reason that we should be afraid to be counted. No reason. I say that to all of our population. Make sure you're counted.
Yeah. I mean, this has been wonderful energy in Arlington. We've got over 40 leaders on the steering committee guiding the complete count. We've got about 250 partners in the community. And, you know, we're developing different messages for the different groups to meet those needs. If you are worried about the knock at the door, fill out the form. Understand that if you're concerned about your immigration status, that you absolutely have a right to be counted regardless of your immigration status. And everyone should want that their community not be deprived of funding. In Arlington, every individual who is undercounted, whether they're an adult or a child, is going to cost the community $22,000 over 10 years. And everybody who wants to make sure we get our fair share should want that. And we're telling people who are environmentally concerned, don't delay. Don't wait for the second notice and the third notice. As soon as you get it, take the invitation, fill it out. That way you'll save repeated mailings. And if anyone's concerned about being tracked online by filling it out in their home, we have community centers, we have libraries, all secure computers where you can fill out the form if that's an issue. So we're trying to appeal to every concern, need that we're hearing so that we can have an answer, because ultimately we want everybody counted.
We do have a concern. A question is coming in from Patty. Fernando, we touched on this a little bit earlier. Question is, how will the Census Bureau ensure that my personal information won't be compromised? Can we review that again,
Sure.
the protections that are in place?
Sure. The personal information of all the individuals gets separated from their name and anything that could identify them. So because we're using technology, that immediately gets taken out of the device, gets into the processing tool. There is no, when we do the results, the tabulation of the reports, there is no way of identifying an address, there's no way of identifying an individual. It's all statistical summaries, very large numbers. So it's totally safe. No one should be worried about will they find me or will my number, my information be compromised. No, the answer is no.
Tal vez un minuto en español. ¿Está seguro los datos, Walda, en español?
Claro que sí, por favor, confíen, la información es segura, hagámonos contar, es importante para mejorar la calidad de nuestra vida y la información es segura, nadie está en riesgo.
The information is safe. Los datos están seguros. Anything you want to add, Safe?
I mean, this has been the concern, and I think that the messaging has to be that, I think that messaging that just came from Fernando has to be continually repeated, particularly now that this citizenship question that has been floating around is no longer there. And I think that's something that needs to be emphasized, and kudos to everyone that worked on that. For our community, as Chair Dorsey mentioned, we're actually trying to make computers available also at the mosque and other places for people that don't necessarily have access to the internet at home, that don't have access to computers, so that they can actually come in and feel comfortable that they're coming to fill out their information.
This question about security of the data, check the Census Bureau website. Local government, Google the Complete Count Committee of Arlington, Prince George's, the district, Fairfax, a trusted nonprofit organization, a house of worship, ask these questions. All right, a little bit more tactical. We're going to get this letter or this postcard inviting us to participate.
Correct.
So do I get it with my wife? Does each person in my house need to complete the census form, or does she or I do it on behalf of our household?
When you receive your invite, there will be a number there that will point you to your particular file.
Okay.
You report for your whole family. And it's very simple, 7, 8 questions, should take no more than 10 minutes.
Okay.
One thing we want to emphasize in 2020 is the importance of including the children.
Yeah.
We're putting a lot of effort in getting the word out to the community. Don't leave your children out, whether they are small or they are growing up. Make sure that your children are included in the census. There are many, many benefits to our children that depend on an accurate census. If we leave them out, all their youth will go through, they'll have to wait until 2030 to be on the census. So make sure that we include all our children.
One census form per household.
Absolutely.
Whether that's a single-family house, might be an apartment, might be a houseboat, one form per household. So we touched on language a bit. Tanya has asked a question. My parents' native language is not English, and I really want them to be counted. Are there any resources I can show them that might assist with getting counted?
Yes, so my recommendation for them will be to look for a nonprofit organization in the area or their church, as Saif mentioned. I believe churches in all the different religions are going to be involved in this effort as well. So look for the school, a library. I know libraries also are going to have technology available for them and ambassadors. I know the census office is going to have ambassadors in the community. So there is going to be plenty of resources, Tanya. Let your parents know that look for help, and nonprofit organizations, we are more than happy to help.
Let me add if I can. The census will be in 12 languages. Right. So you can go online, you can pick up the phone, and there will be someone at the other end that will speak your language. You can do it. In addition to that, we will have language guides for 59 additional languages. So there are many, many resources available to the community, in particular to those that need a different language. There are many ways that we can assist them.
Yeah. So when you say 12 languages, that means when a household gets it, there are 12 different languages to fill out the census?
The invite on the back will specify which number they need to call for that particular language.
Okay.
If they go online, they can choose what language they want to use doing their form online.
Okay.
Something we had not been able to do before.
Good. Has that been a concern in Fairfax County? I imagine there's many languages spoken.
There are, and actually one of the great things for us is some of our community members have actually been hired by the census to be involved.
Yep.
And the census actually came out and did a recruitment effort at our center on a day when it was a congregational prayers. And we're also trying to arrange recruitments on days when we have our food banks, for example, because we have 400 or 500 people that are of all different backgrounds coming through. So for our community, I know that there have been census efforts to recruit people from the community so that they can serve as ambassadors, as Valda had mentioned.
Good. So Fernando, just got a clarifying question. 12 languages on the invitation. 12, was it like a drop-down menu when you get there?
I haven't seen it
Sure.
myself, but they can fill the form online
Yep.
in any of those 12 languages.
Isn't it 12 plus English?
It's,
so 13 total?
I think it's 12 including English.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then you mentioned the language guides. So in addition to the 12, there's did you say 59?
We have 59 translations
Okay.
so that you can take the English version of the form
Okay.
and using the language guide in that particular language, you can see the one-to-one equivalency of each question. So
Okay.
all that is available. We are working with our partners to also know where do we need to do that, where that will be necessary. So we will have all that. That's important for people to know and to take advantage of it.
Good. So 12, then augmented by 59 other
59
language
language
guides. Is this being communicated in Prince George's and Arlington?
Our complete count committees and all of the folks who are putting the word into the streets, that is exactly what they're communicating. And we often talk about our burgeoning population of Spanish speaking. But in our county, we have several different ethnicities represented that use several different languages. And our school system, and that brought me to the thought, our school system has been a very great strident partner because ultimately, as Fernando said, we need to make sure all those children are counted. And those children often are the conduits to their parents.
Absolutely.
So we're trying to make sure that they are getting the message, that it's getting down to the grassroots and then filtering back up, and so that you have that robust strand of communication that's coming. Chuck, you made me think of something when you said it, though, and it was a conversation that Fernando and I had at the beginning of the process, and it was about job opportunities.
Absolutely.
And many, of the job opportunities, as Fernando said, he works in Philadelphia. He has an entire region, but a lot of local folks are hired. And I don't know if anyone has asked that question, but I just would love for him to be able to expand on that. if possible.
It just came in.
There we go.
Serendipity.
I've heard there's a lot of census jobs. Are you still hiring?
Absolutely.
I applied for a job 2 months ago, but I still haven't heard anything.
Yep.
So
Good question. So this coming Saturday, we start making the selections for the positions the people that will be knocking door to door. So our recruiting to be effective, as I've already mentioned this, we need to recruit people from the community. The census in the District of Columbia, in Maryland, in Virginia, is not going to be done from Philadelphia. It's going to be done locally. So we want to make sure that the people that we hire know the community, are trusted by the community, can speak the language that they need to speak, and they care for a good count in that particular community. That is very, very important.
let me ask Saif and Walda how you're communicating about the census jobs. But Fernando, let me know if this is the right website. 2020census.gov/jobs.
Yes,
Is that right?
it is correct.
You want to say it again?
2020census.gov/jobs.
So How are you communicating that there are jobs available to help with the census?
So we've started by actually asking the census folks to come to the center, and they obliged, and they showed up on a Friday. On any given Friday, we've got anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000 people coming through the center. So I think the day that they were there for all three of the prayers, you know, they walked away with hundreds of people that actually took cards and asked questions. So that's something that we've been able to do. We also have job fairs for the community, the Culmore community that we hold, and we've invited the census folks to come out. And we actually have an open house coming up soon that we're going to invite the census folks to make sure that people in the community know. And then the rate isn't a bad rate either. So people once they was at 27 an hour or something.
27.50.
See, there you go. So
That's
it's
a
a
pretty
rate that
good
attracts
salary.
people.
Good.
Well, at the Latino Economic Development Center, we've been focusing more in educating the community to complete the survey. We haven't been advertising the job portion,
Yes.
but we do have our flyer in our reception area, but haven't been promoting. But now with this information, we can promote more
Oh,
that
good.
part.
And Prince George's, Arlington, are folks interested in these census jobs?
I'm going to say it again, 2020census.gov/jobs. Job opportunities. You heard Fernando say paying $27 an hour. So that's just another great opportunity. And ultimately, remember, you're working for the federal government. So this could be an audition for something further into your career, you know, it start your career. 2020census.gov/jobs.
It's a great job
That's right.
for people that want to have additional income.
right.
It's not necessarily a full-time job.
right.
They can work along with other jobs they have. Perfect for students.
Yes.
Perfect for people that are retired.
Absolutely.
It's a great job to look for.
Don't want to get in trouble, but it's also perfect for people who may be, doing Uber, Lyft, or
Absolutely.
Amazon deliveries and are frustrated with the rate of pay there. This is going to deliver a lot more to you per hour.
Absolutely.
All right. Couple technical how people are counted as we roll this out over the next couple months. Fernando, first to you. I got a question. I just moved to DC a month ago. Do I still need to complete the census?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You are, if you're living here,
Yes.
wherever you're living on April 1st,
Yep.
you need to do the census.
Wherever you're living on April 1st, that's where you do the census.
Absolutely.
How about college students? That's a question that's come
I was
up.
going to ask that.
Yeah.
I
College
was going to ask
students.
that.
College students are counted at school,
At school.
and we are going to do their count before we do the rest of the country so that we catch them before they go on break. But it's important. We are working with the universities and the colleges to make sure that they help us get the word out to the students and that they are counted before they leave on summer break.
So college students, where they're living on April 1st.
Correct. Right.
I just moved to DC, where I'm going to be living April 1st. That's where I'm
Correct.
counted. All right, got a question. How are the homeless population, people who are experiencing homelessness, how are they counted?
The people experiencing homelessness, there's a series of different operations that we do. We go through service providers, and we count them through them. People that are living out in the great outdoors, we go and visit them. We have, working with partners, we have identified the locations where we need to go so that on a particular night or a particular set of days, we send our people there to count the people that are experiencing homelessness. We're working very closely with the different county governments and city governments to identify where is it that we need to go on those particular days.
Census Bureau, local government, Christian here in Arlington,
Yeah.
ASPAN, other partners
That's
to get
That's
that
right.
count.
And it's one of those things, we've actually had some outreach to our homeless providers to work within the homeless community, because we shouldn't presume just because someone won't get an invitation to participate that they don't want to participate. So, we've encouraged them to connect with their provider so that they can then participate as is their right, and as many people who are experiencing homelessness believe it's their responsibility. So we want to make sure they can.
Well, got a question that parses this even more. Person who's not literally homeless, but might be couch surfing. I'm here, and then I'm there. How is that enumerated?
Wherever they
Wherever
go,
you
wherever,
count first.
whichever couch they are on April 1st, that's where they count.
That's where they count. Good.
So
Yeah,
it
safe.
would be the person that's kind of in charge of that household that counts
Count
them?
that person.
Correct.
That's right.
Yes.
That's
yes.
right.
Person in charge of them. So
Correct.
good. It might be my wife and I, and my niece, and my niece's friend, and that's who on April 1st.
Our Department of Social Services is very active in our Complete Count Committee and attempting to ensure the coordination to count our homeless population. I just thought, that level in your Complete Count Committee is real important, if I could add. Ultimately, as you put it together, trying to vet all of these types of things that we've talked about and making sure that there's representation on that Complete Count Committee every 10 years. I think it's a critical exercise, especially of government, to ensure that level of collaboration occurs. And so this was one of the questions. We talked about our homeless population, and we were trying to understand how best to grasp it. And we thought about the Department of Social Services. We wanted to make sure they were there, just like with regard to our schools. So that Complete Count Committee is really important.
Absolutely.
A general question, then I'm going to come to a specific question in a moment. Fernando, is everyone counted or just citizens?
No, everyone. Oh, no, everyone.
Everyone.
Absolutely everyone.
If you're here on April 1.
If you're living in a particular county, city on April 1st,
Yep.
you're counted. We do not ask about citizenship. There's no question about
No
citizenship.
question about citizenship.
The Constitution said we count everyone, and we want to count everyone.
If you're a human being here, you're counted.
Absolutely.
All right. We have a question. Let me start with Waldo, then Fernando, you can augment that. We have a question by text. My parents are from Central America and want to be counted. How can they participate?
Completing the survey.
Completing the survey.
That's the way to participate, and they can do it online using their phone, coming to any place that are going to have technology available for them and support to answer questions and bring that support they need. They can do it by phone or by mail, as Fernando already explained. So the only way to participate is completing that survey using any of the means that are going to be available.
So let's just play that out a moment. In apartment 101, there was family X on March 1st. There's family Y on April 1st. So who gets this invitation from the Census Bureau, and how do they fill it in?
The invitation that start going out next Thursday is not addressed to a particular person. It's addressed to that
Yes.
property, to that household.
Yeah.
So whoever receives it and is living there at that point will complete that. In the case that someone is visiting or someone we have multiple families sometimes living at an address, they all need to be counted, not just the owner or the family that owns the property, but every single person that is living at that address needs to be part of
Every
this.
single person who's living at that address. And we have a question related
Can
to.
I just add something
Oh,
to
yeah,
that,
sure.
Chuck? Because there in some communities, some properties, some landlords have very strict rules about overcrowding and things of that nature. Just to be very clear, the Census Bureau, there is no way for that information to be shared with a
Absolutely.
property owner or any code enforcement groups.
Right.
So people should feel free to be fully open about everyone who is residing there, because you will suffer no adverse consequences if you do.
It's a guarantee protected by law that we will save that information and not share it.
It has to be stressed. I don't want to pile on, but it just has to be stressed. This is not a gotcha exercise. This is a get you exercise. It's called get you the resources so that we can take care of the kids, so that we can take care of our roads, so that the federal government can put the appropriate amount of resources into our state, into our localities, so that they work efficiently. So think about it from the perspective of when you file your papers, your name gets erased and it becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, and if it's 17 people in your house, we need to make sure that you count what we say in Prince George's County is lottie dottie and everybody. Everybody needs to be counted, and it's just important to continue to stress it. Not a gotcha exercise. This is a get you the resources exercise.
Fantastic. I was happy to be here when I first heard that. Thank you. Thank you, Derek. I remember that.
It's also a
Yeah.
moment of pride.
Yes.
I think that especially for immigrant communities, it's a moment of pride to be able to say, I'm in the country, I am here, I want people to know, I want the services and the resources that my children, my neighborhood, my family needs.
That's right.
Although you're not in your head to what Fernando was saying.
Yes, that's definitely, I'm completely agree with that. We need to overcome that fear that I mentioned at the beginning, and that is a reality in our immigrant communities. But we need to overcome that and make ourselves count to receive those benefits, to have a better quality of life. That quality of life that we are looking when we came to this country. All of us moved to this country because we have a better life for our families.
Yeah.
So we had to participate and complete that simple survey and understand that it's going to be just numbers that are going to be shared at the end, statistics numbers, to have those funds coming to our communities.
Citizens counted, residents counted. If you're there, you're counted.
Counted.
Undocumented, counted.
Exactly.
Good.
Yes.
Safe?
Yeah, the one thing I would add is I think that the layering of the messaging is important, right? So you have the local kind of in touch people in the faith communities, in the Latinx communities that are connected with their communities and giving this message. But I think it's also equally important for the elected officials to actually have our back, right? In the sense that when we are talking with our communities about the importance that the data won't be used, that code compliance isn't showing up at someone's door afterwards, that we're giving this message to our communities, but we want to feel comfortable that our elected officials understand that we're putting our neck out there to our communities, expressing this message, and we need the support of the elected officials giving the message that was just given here, as well as everywhere else.
Good. Well, Catherine is asking, I think maybe this is indicative, we can't say it enough. She's asking if my information will be shared with law enforcement.
Absolutely not.
No.
No, guaranteed that the information is safe, is not shared. We have a commitment to the community. We have a commitment to the country. We have been doing this since 1790, and we always will protect the information of the public.
And can we just also add that, the census as an institution, been doing it since almost the beginning. So they have rules, but if there's any rogue actor who happens to work for it, the penalties are stiff.
Absolutely.
You go to jail for 5 years. You pay a fine more substantial than most people's net worth. So this is a big deal, your privacy and your security.
Yes.
Safe and secure. So can you give us some examples, maybe start with Fernando? Who's most often likely to be undercounted? Are kids most often to be undercounted, and how are we going to address that?
Children have been undercounted. People that move around.
Why are children undercounted?
Number of reasons. Children, let's say a newborn.
Newborn.
People think, well, he's not a year,
He doesn't count.
will not be counted.
Yeah.
Children that are have shared custody, or parents that have shared custody.
Yeah.
The mother might think the husband, my ex-husband, will count the child, and then they get missed. Children that are living with grandparents, and we have a lot of that. That is also an area where we have missed children.
Children living with grandparents, where they are on April 1, that's where they're counted.
They need to be counted.
So I'm going to do a shout out here. I have a new great nephew,
Hey, congratulations.
born today.
Excellent,
All right.
excellent.
So is he counted?
Absolutely.
All right. So, Kamek, you're counted.
That's right. His first count.
If they're born on April 1st, they're
Count 'em.
If
counted.
they are still in the hospital, they get counted.
That's right.
Counted in the hospital.
Counted where they are going to after the hospital.
That's right.
Thank you. So Children can be undercounted, so the messaging count everybody in that household.
Absolutely.
What are other populations that tend to be undercounted?
Immigrants, people that have recently come to the United States. They come from a country where the census might not be used for the reasons we use it here, or they might be afraid. They might think that I am an immigrant. I don't have to be counted. We want to make sure that everyone, immigrants, people that have been here for a long time, everyone that is living in the United States as of April 1st, and they consider this home, they need to be in the census.
Living in the United States on April 1, considering it home, they need to be counted.
Absolutely.
Citizen, non-citizen, documented,
We don't
undocumented.
ask. We don't ask.
My great nephew, 1 day old,
That's
somebody 100 years old. They're all
Absolutely.
counted. All right, here's one of those technical questions we're getting in. My son lives in a group home, but spends part of his time at our house on the weekends. How are people counted that split their time between two different addresses?
Wherever they spend most of their time, that's where they get counted.
Wherever they spend most of their time, that's where they get counted.
I thought about a question. I used to work for a group home for pre-adjudicated juvenile delinquents. And so it made me think about our incarcerated population and how do we count the incarcerated population.
They get counted through the penal system,
Okay.
and they get counted where they are presently serving their time.
Got it.
But they get counted.
And a group home, if an
Same.
individual's in a
Same
group
thing.
home,
Same
at that residence of
Same thing.
that group home.
People in hospitals that
Hospitals.
are also get counted
Yeah.
if they are living or staying in the hospital.
So there's an issue that sometimes we don't necessarily acknowledge, and it's a message that we're getting across, is this is going to determine whether we have more elected officials.
Yes.
Yeah.
People don't realize that we may, in Fairfax County, that we may need another member of Congress
Right.
to represent us, right?
Right.
In Arlington,
Right.
with all the density that's
Right.
happening, it might be the same thing. So that's something that we're trying to express to people, that it's important that you get counted so that, you're not uncounted when it comes to
Underrepresented.
underrepresented when it comes to issues of elections, when it comes to issues of resources. We live in an area that, particularly there's some poverty. It was one of the wealthiest counties in the United States, but we live near Culmore, and we know that community is a community that needs support, and that those resources are what come through this count issue. So that's the message that we're trying to get across, to make sure that people realize.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because the number of people in Congress is not going to change, but how they are portioned
Yes.
will.
Exactly.
So it's not only about losing an opportunity to have your full representation, someone else has that representation who may not necessarily deserve it. So, you think about that. Your power is minimized while someone else is maximized. It's a huge deal. Thanks for bringing that up.
I talk to a lot of groups. I spend a lot of the time talking to different groups. I like to tell them, you cannot afford not to be on the census. You cannot afford it because you're losing political representation. You cannot afford it because you're losing money.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
So the resources,
money,
the billions
right?
at stake, and also the representations for the D and the M and the V, the
That's
district,
right.
the Maryland, and Virginia.
And Chuck, a final point is all politics is local. So this is not just about your federal reapportionment. As Christian said at the beginning of the conversation, this is the gold standard of data.
Correct.
So your states are reapportioned the same way, and your counties are reapportioned the same way, all the way down to local government. So the count is important, so that your representation is not blunted, but it is effective representation of you and your community.
We're all at large, so we do it the right way. We do it the right way.
So
I'm working on it.
here in the DMV, there's a lot of individuals that work for the Armed Forces, for Department of Defense. So we have a question by text. Fernando, my husband is detailed overseas. Where does he count?
He will be counted through the military.
Counted through the military.
They will provide administrative records so that service person will be counted.
So if spouse is in Arlington, husband is detailed overseas, is he counted in?
The military, our arrangement with the military, with the Department of Defense,
Yes.
will count that individual.
Count that individual.
But so the wife would have to exclude that individual?
If the wife include that individual, we have a
You'd be able to
process that we
reconcile
can
it.
reconcile
Got
it.
it. Okay.
We're getting the invitation, get the letter, and we can do it online or we can call. So responding to this question, folks, if someone can't fill out the census on their own, can someone assist people in filling out the census?
Yes. We will have community organizations that will
Yeah.
be assisting with that, and we will be able to send our staff to churches, to bodegas, to barbershops, where people want to congregate, and we can help them do the census there.
Okay.
But there's also some legal issues that, religious and partners need to be careful that they don't, fill it out for the people. So that's something that we've been saying that, yes, we should be helping people, but we need to make sure that we're doing it the right way by bringing in the census folks and people who have been qualified to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every single person that is going to be involved in helping someone has to be a sworn census employee to protect the confidentiality.
Yeah, I just would like to add that I think the Census Office and the Census Bureau has done a very good job training us as people working in with the community. And we know that we cannot answer the questions for them, that we are going to be there just to facilitate the process, to get them to the link and open the link. And then if they have any question regarding that, how should I answer this question, to try to explain how they should answer, but not answering the questions for them. So I think all of us are well trained in that area, and the community should feel safe to come to us, to the church, to the library, to the school, to the clinic, any place that they can get this assistance.
Good. Another question about helping our elderly neighbors in an assisted living center. I think of my own Aunt Dorothy, sharp as a tack, but maybe how does it get to her in room 8 at the assisted living center? What happens
We're
then?
working with the nursing homes, with all the facilities that house the elderly. We're working with them, and we are going to do the count there.
Yep.
If people need assistance, we are going to do the count there. Those that can do their own census online, on the phone, or on paper, they can do it. Those that need help will work with them to do
Okay,
it.
they do it online. Otherwise, it's going to be another wave of the door knocking. But every one of us who can do it online, let's.
Or pick up the phone.
I think I'd say get her done, but what was it? Get you the resources.
That's right.
Is that
Exactly.
That's right. Good. Is that what you're seeing in Arlington, Christian?
Absolutely. The partners, I just can't stress enough how great that is, and not only informing what our outreach strategy should be, but identifying what are those difficult to count groups, whether they be in a senior center or just even traditional in Arlington, all these high rises, these multi-family buildings, understanding that because of people's jobs, that there might come a point where there needs to be a knock on the door. And we've got a significant amount of our housing stock where you just can't walk in the door. And so making sure that we at all levels account for all of these areas where it's difficult to get the full count that we need. And our partners have just been terrific.
Yeah.
So a focus on when we get the invitation to do it online. I know Arlington, take a break, take the census.
Take a break, take the census.
So what's going to happen there?
So this is great, and I hope that other jurisdictions in the COG region are going to do the same thing. But we're going to provide to all of our employees 15 minutes to take a break, not a part of their regular break. It's bonus time off. Take a break and take the census, and we're using that to just encourage everyone who works for Arlington County, all 4,000 employees of county government, and we're getting our school system to do the same with their employees. Let's give everybody the time they need, because we get it. You work a lot. You want to spend time with your children. Finding that time to do it can sometimes be a barrier. So let's eliminate that barrier.
Is that something that employers can take a break, take the census, so their employees
We're
can?
encouraging, we're using the same model and encouraging, sharing that with many, many other organizations and encouraging them to adopt that.
Have you guys copyrighted it?
We should. I'll look into it. I'll look into it, right?
I know our organization is going to be doing that, take a
Yeah,
break, take the
pushing.
census.
Yeah.
So let's say we do the take a break, take the census. I and some of my team do the census together. We got a question here. Can the questionnaire be taken on my mobile phone?
Yes.
Yes.
Any device that can get to the internet,
Yes.
you can do the census.
So I could just put my code in. And how many questions?
9 questions.
9 questions right on my phone.
Yep.
Wow.
What's the estimated time? How long it will take?
No more than 10 minutes.
Right.
No more. So Arlington is giving 15.
We're giving
That's right.
15 minutes. So everybody's going to have at least a 5-minute bonus break.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
So
Look at
generous.
that.
So generous.
It's important to have enough time. to
I'm going to
That's
send
right.
that through my complete count committee.
That's great. 9 questions. Is that what you said?
Yes.
9 questions in 10 minutes.
Max. Right?
Max.
Yes.
What happens if we got a question, what happens if I skip a question? Does it let me finish the questionnaire? Does it still count?
Yes, you can get through.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I can answer 8 questions of the 9.
We want everyone to answer a complete
Complete,
census
right.
because
Yeah.
every single question there's a need for it.
That's right.
There's something, there's some program
Yeah.
that needs that information. And in
Okay.
order for us to be able to have a good count, a
Yeah.
complete count, we need everything answered. But
Okay.
if something is missed, we will follow up or we will do whatever we need to do to get it.
We
Oh,
need
so
to
that's an
count all the
important thing,
children
though.
for the school funding formulas, for housing, for roads and
Roads,
transportation. So every question is important.
Absolutely.
But if you skip a question, you can still
You
complete
can get to
it.
the end.
Yeah,
But I also heard something that we might want to spotlight here, though. Fernando said, you know, as we've talked before, this is all secure, so there's no reason why someone should not complete all 9
Okay,
questions. But I heard you say that if you don't do all 9, you may have someone follow up.
If there's some missing information that is critical to the completion of the form, we'll call you or we'll visit you.
Get on the knock on the
So
door.
say, like we said, if you don't want the knock at the door, not only fill it out, fill out
it
the
all
whole
out.
thing.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we ask for the phone number so that if something has to be followed up, we can do that without having to knock on doors.
So 9 questions in 10 minutes. Can you give us an example of a question or two that might be on the questionnaire?
The name, the date of birth, age, gender, where they
That's fine.
race, ethnic origin.
Okay, okay.
So I can probably answer these 9 questions without a lot of studying.
Right,
Absolutely.
I mean that as a
Absolutely.
joke. Yeah, we can. What won't be asked? And I think, are there
That's
questions
important. Yeah,
that get asked as you do your outreach? What won't be asked?
We're not asking for social security number.
Okay.
We are not asking whether people are citizens or not. We're not asking for anything that has to do with income
Okay.
or bank accounts
Yeah.
or anything like that.
No social security, no
Absolutely.
income, no
Absolutely.
bank accounts. Are you getting
Absolutely.
questions like this, Walda?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. People is very eager to learn what is
Yeah.
going to be included in the survey. So, and that's important for them to know to avoid scams.
Yeah.
So it's important that in our messages we include that information. What won't be asked.
That's right.
Yeah.
You don't have to give your social security number to nobody.
Yep.
Your bank account, your credit card information.
Nothing really financial. You said no
Nothing.
income.
Nothing at all.
No
Yeah.
income,
Nothing at all.
just demographics.
Yeah.
That is what is important for the government to receive the information
Okay.
to allocate the
Age
funds.
and, age and gender. Yeah.
It's also important to inform the public that if you get someone at your door representing the Census Bureau, they need to have a badge with a picture
That's right.
that
Clearly.
that tells them that is an official census employee that has taken an oath to protect the confidentiality.
Will it say U.S. Census, or what will it say exactly, so people?
It will be very similar to this badge. It will have a picture, it will have the name of the agency,
Yeah.
it will have the logo of the agency.
In the
It-
Census Bureau part of the Department of Commerce?
Yes, it
So
is.
U.S.
Yeah.
Department of Commerce, Bureau
So
of the
it's an
Census.
official government ID card.
Yeah.
So, what if someone asks me one of these financial questions or asks for Social Security? What should I do if someone asks me those questions?
Don't answer it.
Don't answer it.
Don't answer
Yeah.
it.
Don't answer it?
Don't answer
Report
it,
them?
and report
Report
it
it
to
to
us.
Yep, see?
Yeah, that's a concern because I know my parents, they get these calls. Well, we're from the IRS,
Right,
and
right.
it's these
right,
scams
right.
that are out there. Oh, you've got a warrant out for you or something like that, and the sheriff is coming. So I mean, I think this is something it's important to get out there to the community. Is what is it that a census worker will have in the form of identification, and what are the questions they are allowed and not allowed to ask?
Right.
And I think that we're trying to get that out to the community. That if anyone does ask for your Social Security, you know that that's probably a scam. That they
right.
shouldn't be asking
Absolutely.
for it. The question then is, where do they go to report that? And I think that's also an important question.
Good. 9 questions, demographic, pretty basic, no financial.
And Fernando, on the website, Census website, are the 9 questions and a copy of what the ID would look like, are those available for people to actually see?
There's information about how to identify
Okay.
the census
Okay,
employee.
great.
They'll have a bag with
Okay.
a logo.
Got it?
They will have the badge. They will provide a letter of privacy indicating to the
Okay.
residents their rights and the information, how it's
Excellent.
protected.
Excellent.
So there are ways for people to identify if this is a real census employee or not.
Got it.
But better than that is go online and pick up the phone.
2020census.gov to get more information. Anyone want to just kind of wrap up with a favorite hashtag? I'll start. Count DMV in. Count DMV in. Or maybe another hashtag. Hashtag everyone counts. Any
Yeah.
other things that you want to be trending tonight? Any other hashtags?
Fill it online. Don't get the knock on the door.
Fill it online. Don't get the knock on the door.
pgcensus2020.org.
pgcensus2020.org.
You already stole mine. Hashtag everyone counts. But there we go. All right.
Todos contamos.
Todos
Right.
contamos.
Todos
Okay,
contamos.
very
That's
good.
right.
Well, that brings us to the end of our virtual conversation on the 2020 census. There are a lot of great things happening throughout our region to get out the count. In fact, starting on March 12th through April 1, COG and local employers from the public and private sector are working to help get out the count for the upcoming 2020 census by scheduling a time, planning an event, and or offering incentives to their employees to take a break to complete the 2020 census survey during work. So whether you live in DC, Maryland, or Virginia, there's one thing we can all agree on. Taking the 2020 census is a win-win for the region. I count, you count, grandparents count, my great new nephew counts, and everyone you've seen today counts. So we're counting on you to hashtag CountDMVIn. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and thanks to our amazing panelists for joining us this evening. Please look out for your invitation from the U.S. Census Bureau arriving next week. For additional resources, please visit the Census website at www.2020census.gov, and good evening.
Nicely done, everybody.
Ah, man, that was.